So it is the 30th anniversary of the Game Boy, and I am really excited because I love the Game Boy. It's my favorite handheld of all time. And I just recently got this green Game Boy for a really good deal with the backlight and bivert mod. And I don't really like green too much. The shell on this is not too bad, but I decided, you know what, I want to reshell this bad boy. And just why not record a video and show how easy it is to give new life to the shell of your Game Boy, because there's some nasty looking ones out there, and sometimes you get a really good deal, and buying new shells for these things are pretty cheap. Usually 10, 12 bucks, comes with everything you need. And I wanted to go ahead and reskin this guy because the Game Boy next to it's my original clear Game Boy that I've had forever, and I really hesitated modding that thing. I just did the backlight and bivert on that the other day. It's going to be showcased in another video, but I didn't want to change the shell or anything just because I really love it. This one, since I got such a good deal on it, I figured why not customize it a little bit. So I got this transparent blue shell. I think it was like 12 bucks on eBay. I'll put a link in the description. Comes with everything you need, including the screen, the little lens protector, which is plastic. I do prefer using glass, so that's what we're gonna do instead, is use one of these glass screen protectors. That way it doesn't get scratched up. But this is a fairly easy thing to do. If you find a nasty Game Boy out there that the screen functions, speaker functions, you don't really need to mod anything, boom, change that shell out. You're gonna need a tri-wing screwdriver and a Phillips head, 2mm, what I'm using. That kit is pretty nice. Comes with tons of stuff that you could use for, you know, console modding, cleaning, little repairs, and so on and so forth. Yeah, this kit came with 2 screwdrivers, but they're too little for me. I ain't got baby hands, I got big boy hands. So in the back of the Game Boy, tri-wing screws, you're gonna use that screwdriver. There are 6 screws to remove. And this is the last that you have to use, the tri-wing screwdriver, for taking this thing apart. Everything else on the inside is Phillips head. So pretty good with that. But yeah, you could see this Game Boy, the shell's not too bad, but I just don't like green. And for the deal I got, why not swap it around? So when you open this up, you do have the ribbon cable that is interfacing to the motherboard to the screen. It is very sturdy, not that big of a deal. You're not gonna break it, but still be careful. And it just slides out from underneath. So go ahead and slide it out as easily and carefully as possible. It's not like messing with the cables on the ribbon cables for like the LCD and whatnot. The way they have that stuff attached to a lot of these things is very gentle, but on here, this thing, you don't really have to stress too much. But there's only 4 screws on this half, the half that the cartridge goes into and the audio jack, the headphone jack is at. Now, I don't know what the heck these 2 wires they have hooked up to the headphone jack to the board is. I'm not sure if they think that's a pro sound mod, but listening to this thing, I mean, I don't really see any impact on sound, so I'm not sure what that is, those 2 cables they got running up through the middle of the board, because that's not normally there. But do be wary if you're buying like a pre-modded Game Boy with the screen and, you know, backlit screen and whatnot. A lot of people will say, oh, it's got pro sound, and it does not have jack. Really look up what pro sound mods are so you know what you're getting yourself into and what questions to ask, but definitely this does not appear to be a pro sound modded Game Boy to me. I'm not sure if that's what they said it was, but it's definitely not. So here we go. We're just going to go ahead and reshell that back half. And as you see on the screen, I forgot to put the power slider back in. That's my bad, but I do fix it later. Not a big deal, but that goes the top left. You would just wedge that bad boy in there. But here, just getting those screws back into place. You know, I'm using the screws that were already inside the Game Boy. That's one thing you have to kind of pay attention to, because sometimes the screws that you already have on your Game Boy, when you're using these third-party shells, they will not fit. And sometimes these kits don't come with all the screws that you need. This kit in particular, it only came with the screws needed to put both halves back together. So I am using all the screws from inside of the original Game Boy, and they all fit fine. But for the putting them back together, you cannot use on this particular kit the same screws. You have to use the ones that they gave you, otherwise you'll strip the plastic, and that's something you don't want to do. So take your time with this. Don't over tighten anything. You know, you're dealing with plastics here. You don't want to lose that threading and just have the screws go loose and have the boards kind of wiggling around. That's the biggest thing here. It's just making sure you're not over tightening it, but still very simple to reshell these things. So there we go, got that half back in there, making sure the Game Boy cartridge plugs in good and doesn't feel all crunchy or anything. And we're straight, we're legit. So everything on this half is in there pretty damn well. I'm just kind of curious on those cables. I gotta look that up because I've not seen that before. And really listening through headphones on this Game Boy and listening to the speaker, it just sounds like a normal backlit biverted Game Boy to me. You do kind of get a little hum sometimes. Once you got that game audio going, it's usually not a big deal, but yeah, there's nothing special with the audio on this one. Now for this half with the screen, there's a bunch of screws. I think we got like 7 of them. I think 1, 2, 3, 4, like 5, 6, 7, 8. I don't know. There's like 8 screws up in this bad boy. Take your time, get them out. This part is pretty simple, but this is the most work you're gonna do for this whole thing, is taking out this buttload of screws just to get to the screen. But if you're doing the backlight and bivert mod, this is all you'd have to do. You wouldn't have to take the other half apart. Maybe we'll do a video on that, but I mean, I think it's been done quite a bit. And there we go. We got her out. Very simple. If it's a new Game Boy that never, or not a new Game Boy, but a Game Boy that has never had the screen removed or anything, you might kind of have to be careful with it. It might be stuck to the plastic. Here I'm just kind of wiping it up because I did notice there was a lot of like dirt and dust on the actual screen. Whoever modded this, they didn't keep it clean when they did it. But here I'm just kind of deciding, man, which glass screen protector do I want to put? So I'm kind of comparing the colors from the original one versus the sets that I have. Usually you can find these glass screen protectors for like $3 or $4. I think Console 5 has them. That's usually where I get them because I buy everything from console5.com. I actually have another video we're going to be doing just in a couple days actually of the Game Boy Color McWill mod. I have a bunch of Game Boy Colors lined up, a bunch of Game Boy Color McWill kits lined up, and we're going to do it to it. I'm super excited for that. The mod looks amazing. It blows the backlit Game Boy out the water, but it's still kind of cool having this chunky little fat boy Game Boy. But here we go. Glass screen protector, nice. So I almost put the screen back in there, but we got to get the buttons back into place. So a lot of times with these kits, you do have to use the actual buttons they sent you. Sometimes the originals don't fit properly. But I actually, after doing this whole video and putting all this stuff together, I actually went back. I did not like the buttons that this kit came with. They just didn't feel as good. They didn't sit as high. They kind of sat lower than the originals. So I actually opened it back up and put my original buttons in there, and everything feels really good. No issue. They don't wobble around. They're not loose or anything. They fit fine, but sometimes they do tell you, make sure to use the buttons they give you. But here we go. We got the membranes in there for the contacts for the buttons, and then just laying the board back in there. The speaker, it does have like a little groove, a little notch that you kind of get that back into the plastic, has a little slit on the side. You just want to make sure you got it in there. That way it doesn't like sit up high and then crunch in and break the plastic once you put it back together. And then just getting these screws back in, man. This is simple, real simple. Get those cheap, dirty, nasty looking Game Boys out there that work perfectly fine, and clean them up. Get them a new case if you can't clean up the case, because there's a lot of them that are just dinged up, scratched up, just fucked up, man. I've seen plenty of them. You can get some good deals on Game Boys. If you're into making money, you could even do that. I mean, backlight and bivert a cheap Game Boy you got for a couple bucks because it looked like crap. Get a new shell for it, get that backlight and bivert in there and sell it for like $100 off of, like a $30 investment. I mean, you can make a little bit of money. People are looking for these things, I think. But here we go. We just got to make sure all the cables are out of the way for where the screw holes are and everything, and then just slide that ribbon cable back into place. Just make sure you're really paying attention to getting it in there right. But don't be afraid to push it, you know, kind of get that fold and then just push it in. It's a very thick and sturdy cable. You're not gonna rip it or anything. I mean, you can if you want to, but you're not gonna go that far to ripping it if you're not trying. If you're just trying to get it in there, it should be fine. So boom, both halves back in. You see I did get that power switch back in there. Kind of missed it earlier, my bad. And then we are using the included screws, and they are Phillips head instead of tri-wing, which is fine if I ever need to get back in there. At least I'm just using one screw, you know, screwdriver type, which I did go back in there, like I said. I actually noticed, and you'll see when I turn the Game Boy back on, that on the top right, you could probably see it in the beginning of the video too, that there's a little distortion of color of light on the top right corner of the screen. And I actually went back in there because it was bugging the hell out of me. And actually this little expansion port slot cover, that thing does not stay on there. Wouldn't even bother using it. It actually like fell off. I threw it away after this because it wouldn't stay on there. But I went back in there and they left some of the residue from when they did the backlight mod. So there was still some like sticky residue. I just cleaned it off with some rubbing alcohol, and boom, the screen looks good now. These Sunbeam cheap ass batteries, I highly recommend not using them, especially not for a backlit modded Game Boy. They are crap. They're only good for like TV remotes and stuff, and even then they don't last very long, but they're like 99-cent store batteries. I have some Eneloop rechargeables coming for all my devices because I'm tired of buying batteries. And but yeah, I only use these because I had to grab them to make sure my Game Boys worked. But definitely, see, you could probably see the upper right corner of the screen is a little, the lighting seems a little off, like it's a little brighter. And it was just this, it was from distortion from a little sticky residue that was on the screen that whoever modded this left it on there. So I went in there, took the screen up and did all that, cleaned it up, and it looks a lot better now. I prefer with the backlight mods, so you can really see it now, it's distorted. With the backlight mods, I think this is like yellow, but I prefer just the white. It just looks so much better. I'll show that in another video that I'm working on, but boom, here we go. Beautiful looking Game Boy in my opinion, especially after I fix the screen. But beautiful looking Game Boy, the buttons, everything feels fine. Like I said, I did go back in there and put the original buttons. These buttons were okay. They just seemed like they didn't sit as high as the originals. So I did swap them back and everything worked out great. But there you go, man. A very beautiful Game Boy. I might wind up giving this one away. Just because, I mean, I have my other one that I really love, and then I'm going to have my McWill modded Game Boy Color in a couple days, and we'll be showing that on the channel. I'm actually going to be modding a bunch of those things. Can't wait. But there we go, green to clear blue. So really do appreciate you guys hanging out with me. Happy 30th birthday, Game Boy. I love you, man. Really do. So there we go, guys. Catch y'all next time. Peace out, blah-blahs, and boom!